The Alberta oil sands, the Saudi Arabia of the North. It's the second largest oil deposit on Earth.
America is addicted to oil, which is often imported from unstable parts of the world.
With skyrocketing gas prices, U.S. demand is spurring a five-fold increase in this once unprofitable development.
Canada has become America's #1 source of imported oil.
Billions of dollars are being invested to build the world's largest industrial project on a landmass nearly the size of Florida.
Foreign workers are flooding into the overcrowded boomtown of Fort McMurray in search of unprecedented wealth. Ancient forests are cleared to make way for large open-pit mines. Heavy oil is separated from the sand with chemicals and steam, then refined into crude oil.
The byproduct is billions of barrels of wastewater collected into vast toxic tailings ponds. It is also what's turning Canada into one of the biggest emitters of greenhouse gases.
Running through the oil sands is the Athabasca River, the lifeblood of the native communities downstream.
How long have you lived here? How long have you lived in Mackay?
Oh, I was born in Asia.
How old are you now?
69.
So you could be an example. You could be a living example to people out here, especially to young people. If you were to quit drinking and smoking.
But I never used to drink when I got married.
I know, but now,
Yeah.
you know all the
now,
problems. You know all the
yes.
problems that are happening out here.
Yeah.
Can you imagine other people that might be thinking about it? If they see that you've been able to do it, you've managed to do it, that will give them great encouragement, right?
Right.
Are you ready to do it?
Sure I will.
Okay, thank you. So I will put, what I'll do, I'll just phone the pharmacy. And as soon as Dr. Sauvé contacts me, I'm going to call you directly. And I'll let you know. And you'll have hopefully been on this medication for a month and you won't be drinking.
Yeah.
Right? And you should feel wonderful.
Sure.
Okay?
Okay.
Good.
That sounds good.
Here's your cane. You know, I remember not too long ago when you wanted to hit me with that. Do you remember that?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I remember everything.
So I'll see you back in a month.
Okay.
Right, but I'll be in touch with you anyway after I
And
speak to
don't
you.
fool around on me.
I won't fool around.
Flirting with my husband again.
So you're honest.
I will, yeah, and faithful. Faithful to the end, okay?
Behave yourself.
When I went into practice initially, I was quickly fascinated by native culture. On arrival in Fort Chip, I was mindful of the fact that I had to gain the respect and trust of the elders. I was struck by the isolation and the beauty, actually, of the location of Fort Chip, sitting as it is on the north shore of the west end of Lake Athabasca. I was so very impressed by the eloquence of the people.
Fort Chipewyan is an isolated community. Our people have lived in the delta around Fort Chipewyan for probably about 12,000 years, if not more. And the land for the people is their life. The water is their life. And we rely on the water for hunting and fishing and transportation and for drinking. It's our subsistence.
The elders believe that it's our inherent right to look after the gifts that the Creator gave us, which is the water, the animals. They're there for us. We don't take more than what we need. And it's our inherent right to pass this on to our children and to the future generations.
I was very fascinated by the descriptions that the elders gave to me of their overview of things over the past couple of decades as it happened in Fort Chip, especially their descriptions of the changes that they had seen in the environment, the falling population of some of the small animals that they trapped and hunted for. They were not able to hunt as successfully as what they had in years gone by, and they linked their health to these changes. They felt that the community's overall health had deteriorated, and they consistently connected that with the changes they'd seen, for instance, in the water.
These ropes are all in place. Oh, I gotta put the plug in here. You wanna launch without that. Done that before. I lived in Chip most of my life here. We used to live off the land, really lots. Ducks, geese, was in abundance. Like there used to be hundreds of thousands of them flying over. And now, well, lucky if I seen 100 this year. It's just sad. I guess it's mostly the pollution in the air that bothers them. And when they do land, like they're really sensitive. The feed, the food chain, it's all messed up too. And now when you kill an animal or a bird, you gotta check the organs. You gotta make sure it's all right before you take it home, because lots of it's no good.
I went out to go hunt some ducks, gave a few of them to Mom, who is 85 years old. She just threw them out after she cooked one. She said, it just doesn't taste the same. So, the people down south don't believe us, he said. Well, they better, because we've seen the changes. I'd like to take you back maybe 20 years ago, let's say 1988. There was not very much of concern then. As soon as the development started occurring in the Fort McMurray area, in the oil sands area, it was more of a concern to us because we see the changes in our food supplies, and how they tasted. I've witnessed it myself, so I also used to trap out there and, spent some time out there, so I can tell you that for sure there is some change. What Suncor came out with here a couple of years back on their hearings with the Energy and Utilities Board regarding arsenic that's being let out from their plant, they were pretty well, open about it. So that put a scare in all the people here. And now people are very, very, reluctant to eat fish.
For all the years I had fish, I never seen things like the last 10 years what happened with fish with, deformed, pushed in pieces, humpbacks, crooked tails on them, sores on the side. They're not fit for human consumption. There's something in this water that's destroying our fish.
I worked industry, Syncrude, 15 years, and that was good. I made some big dollars. And I started off driving trucks, then worked my way up, graders, dozers, onto shovels, day shift, night shift, right to the top pretty well, I guess. A little supervising and stuff like that. Then my health started getting bad.
So you don't regret it at all?
Not really, except for my lungs now. They're bad. I really struggle. I can't, exert myself. Then I need to breathe hard. I have to stop, and it's a bummer, I can't do much. So, how are you? You look good.
Thank you.
So everything is going well? As I became familiar with the patients I was seeing in Fort Chip, there was a number of people that had been previously diagnosed with, quite serious illnesses, like especially various types of cancers. It surprised me because I felt that a community situated as it was should be healthier. In 2002-2003, I saw my first case of a bile duct cancer that I was familiar with. The cancer is called cholangiocarcinoma. It's very aggressive generally. My dad passed away 6 weeks to the day after he'd first presented with symptoms. This occurs at a rate of 1 in 100,000 population. I was dealing with 1,200 people in Fort Chip. It could happen probably or possibly purely through chance. The gentleman actually is now deceased. Shortly after that, I saw a second case, an older gentleman. He was not well enough, unfortunately, to be operated on and did not last very long. But there was one other biopsy-positive case of cholangiocarcinoma. I'm sure I've seen 3 other cases, which I think is very significant for that size of the population.
This greatly disturbed John, and he thought, this is not right, there's something wrong. He started to do what a good community doctor does, is he advocates for the people that he treats. And so he started to ask both federal and provincial scientists, why am I seeing the things that I'm seeing? Why am I seeing such elevated rates of lupus, elevated rates of colon cancer, of bile duct cancer, and other diseases? And that got John into a lot of trouble. As a result of asking those questions, John got hammered. And John got hammered by both the federal government and the provincial government. And he got hammered in the most unusual way. Alberta Health, Health Canada, and Environment Canada filed charges against John before the College of Physicians and Surgeons in Alberta. And the charges were extraordinary. They accused him of causing undue alarm in the community by talking about these cancers. They accused him of double billing and irresponsible practices. There were 6 or 8 charges there. A lot of the charges were just pure attempts to assassinate the character of a beloved physician. I was shocked. I felt the issue of raising undue alarm. It seemed a little odd because I wasn't aware of any alarm in the community. For the governments of Canada and the governments of Alberta to accuse him of causing undue alarm when both governments have failed to do proper health studies in the region, it's simply outrageous. As a journalist, I've never heard, ever, of a physician being accused of causing undue alarm in a community because he's asked questions about the level and rareness of diseases he's finding in the community. I think this is unprecedented.
There was no clear and convincing proof that there was undue alarm in Fort Chip. There's absolutely no evidence that John raised. He was just a messenger. And when you get a college complaint, it's the license at stake. It's an all-out threat to one's livelihood. When you start to go up against oiled money, it gets dangerous very quickly.
They were after him, they're trying to take his license away from him, they threatened him and all that, and it's shameful what they did. He's a doctor and he's trying to save people.
Dr. O'Connor thought that there might be a link between environmental contaminants and these diseases. And having made myself familiar with the levels of contaminants in the river and in wildlife and in the sediments, that position of Dr. O'Connor made sense to me.
I think we need to be fair about this and take a look at the Athabasca River, how it developed. You can see bitumen running out of the banks of the Athabasca River on a hot summer day and running into the river. It's been going on for millennia, and it's not as if we're dumping oil in the river and no one else is doing anything. Mother Nature has done that for decades and eons. The regulatory arrangements around the water are very stringent. I mean, if you want to compare our water quality arrangements and regulations with any other jurisdiction, I would suggest that we would stack up very well.
The industry does monitor, but governments also monitor on a regular basis the air quality and the water quality, both upstream and downstream of the plants.
The tests that we've done and continually test and retest the river water, we actually don't find that there's a contribution of degradation in river water quality from industrial establishments.
The government actually gathers very little of its own data now. They've devolved that over time such that most of the information that the government gets is actually from industry.
About a decade ago, I did a preliminary study of this with Alberta Environment, of 2 or 3 of the river systems that are now being mined, and we found preliminary evidence that there were pulses of acid going into the river. We proposed to do a more intensive study. Study still hasn't been done. Industry's answer to us was that it would cost too much.
The truth of the matter is that most of the operations that are using water at the moment to produce bitumen, 90% plus of that water can be recycled, and in many cases is.
What's dumped into the tailings pond is a witch's brew of water, clay, silt, and naphthenic acid. Tar sands are not standard oil. They are full of all sorts of very nasty things that we do not want in our world. We know that the tailings ponds are leaking. We know that there have been many large spills of bitumen or industrial wastewater into the river system. Tar Island Pond 1 is perhaps the best studied of the tailings ponds, and it's been documented that the pond leaks at a rate of about 5.7 million liters per day and has for many, many years. The pond was built really at a time when they didn't think far enough into the future about, is it wise to place an extremely toxic tailings pond immediately adjacent to a major river? I've spoken with environmental officers for the Alberta government who have been frustrated to tears because they have filed reports, have caught polluters year in, year out, and nothing ever happens. It gets to a certain point at the political level and they kill the investigation.
John and his wife Charlene left Fort McMurray in the fall of 2007, and they left because they really couldn't take the craziness any longer.
The very last day in Fort Chip, I was told on the morning that the community wanted to have a sort of going away community meal at the community hall. And so at lunchtime, I walked out into the waiting room and it was full, as many as could fit into the waiting room of the nursing station. And I was presented with several things and then this. And I was like a blubbering fool. This is the community wrapping itself around me. This is exactly what it is. Each individual that I look at and remember, you know, was that little experience, was that moment or that encounter, and this is everything stitched together. We want to make sure that we're looking after this community in Nova Scotia. At some point, we would certainly consider returning to Fort Chip on a regular basis.
I'm gonna have a puff here. Where's this story? Oh, here we go. Here's a story about a good Dr. O'Connor, tar wars, about industry and the effects that's happened with the people in Chip and struggling and with their lifestyles and with the cancers and the diseases. And it's an 8-page read. It's a good read. And I'm in there.
From where we sit downstream from oil sands activities, Fort Chipewyan is probably the community that has the most at stake. We want to find some answers in terms of why is there such a disproportionate amount of cancers in a small community of 1,200 people. Every incident that was investigated by the Alberta government in collaboration with a company concluded that there was no impact to the Athabasca River. We didn't buy that. We don't buy any of the results or studies that they come and report to the community of Fort Chipewyan.
The community contacted me and said, we would like you to do a study of the contaminants in our water, in our sediment, in our wildlife, and tell us the truth, because they felt for a very long time that they hadn't been told the truth. The study was in part new data we gathered from water and sediment. What I did was I gathered data from many different sources that really hadn't been analyzed before, crunched the numbers, and lo and behold, there were some worrisome patterns that started to jump out at me.
A quick overview of what we found. For people who eat locally caught fish, the health risk to you is greater than the Alberta government has told you.
There's a very clear link between arsenic and many of the kinds of diseases that you have in your community, that this is a red flag item that really needs to be studied in some greater detail. The mercury in the fishes is really quite high, and in many of the fish species it's well above what would be considered a safe level to eat. The people in the community who eat a lot of fish were virtually unaware of this, even though Health Canada and Alberta Health and Wellness has said, well, we told the community this is nothing new. That's really not the impression that the people of Fort Chipewyan gave me. They said, this is shocking.
We've been losing the elders for a number of years now, right down to young people now. We just lost one beautiful young man here at the age of 28 this past summer with a rare cancer. That kid was so kind to everyone, you know, the elders and all. So that was a big loss to the community too, you know. And then everyone that dies here is a loss to the community.
Their tone was stern, their message clear. For some, this rally was an emotional plea to solve a problem they say is killing their community.
He fought hard, he fought right to the bitter end, but at the end, I guess the disease was too overpowering, too deadly for him that he couldn't fight anymore.
Less than 2 months ago, Steve Cotterell buried his 28-year-old nephew. He died of a rare form of cancer. His uncle and hundreds of others here believe is linked to oil sands projects upstream.
How many more of our young people need to die before somebody wakes up?
Today, demonstrators slammed the provincial Tories for ignoring Fort Chipewyan's pleas, calling for an end to new oil sands projects until the health impact is clearly understood.
We certainly are paying attention, and will continue to work with the people in that community to try to mitigate and address any of those types of circumstances that they face.
Alberta's Liberals say tainted water leaked from an oil sands plant into the Athabasca River was kept secret for months. The opposition released a report today saying the leak from Suncor's wastewater pond happened last fall and that residents downstream were not told about it until 2 weeks ago.
I don't know when they were told, and that's one of the things I want to find out for sure is were the people notified, and again, what was the level of toxicity, if there was any.
The Liberals say the leak was the same volume as an Olympic-sized swimming pool and included water contaminated with oil and grease.
Suncor, as the company, has agreed to come to the community and to talk to you about and to report and communicate to you the details of some of these incidences. We've asked them to do that for the past 5 years, and they've agreed to do that. Thank you.
What we're telling you is true, and that we're hearing you, and that if you're telling us to do things differently, then we do it differently. Like, tell us how we can do that better.
I'm afraid to even get my baby to drink the water. The day I've had her or brought her home, she hasn't touched the water at all. She's had bottled water, which is unacceptable because I don't want my baby to go like I've lost family members. What's gonna happen around her? The environment that she's gonna be growing up in. That's my concern.
We've lost a lot of people. We bury people all the time. And the government still gives out their licenses. You should be ashamed of yourself.
This is a very hard place to be. I've heard more tonight than I've heard in the last 10 years about how you feel about how things are going right now.
The industry is coming here to destroy the indigenous people on this area. People from all over the world are coming here, destroying our land. The animals are dying, people are dying. It's enough. That has to be stopped by 80 meetings necessary. And we are not going to wait any longer. Aye, aye.
We're a small little community, you know, we're the Davids. Now we're going to the Goliaths of government and industry. You know, it's, how do you even begin?
Athabasca runs cold, runs cold. The river through the Athabasca runs cold, runs cold.
Who are you seeing today, John, in Fort McCry?
I don't know. One of the nice things about it is it's always a surprise. You never know who's going to be there.
What's up, Doc? Hey, Roy, how are you? Good. No, well, actually not good. That's why I'm here to see you.
No, sorry. You said good. You can't go back in the...
Okay, good then. I have the same problem last time I came to see you. I'm coughing a lot, I'm sneezing. When I cough, it's a dry cough and I just want to...
I have a feeling this is not asthma. I think it's probably all in your sinuses, and that accounts for it going on for so long. So we'll use a nasal spray, and I'm going to see if I can get a strong decongestant for you. Something like what Dr. Nawak...
John was able to provide great service through telehealth. He's able to support the community with regular weekly telehealth clinics, and then every 6 weeks coming back to maintain that in-person presence. John's provided that support by 24/7 phone availability is amazing. I mean, most people wouldn't think of offering that kind of service. He does it, and he does it patiently, even temperately. It's just amazing.
We're gonna get some tests done on you.
That's all, folks. From all our perspectives, what we should be doing is putting people first. Take a lesson from what's happening in Fort Chip, and realizing that the price of this absolute unabated development that's going on, not just in the tar sands but all over the world, is perhaps getting to be too big a price to pay.
I think most people think everything is probably okay, whereas the closer you get to Fort Chippewa and the closer you get to the Athabasca River, the more you learn about the system, the more concerned you are about the future.